What's up, guys? It's your boy, Low Effort, and I have been playing the crap out of Elden Ring. I am 60-70% of the way through the DLC. Been having a little bit of trouble with a couple of bosses, particularly Mesmer. I beat him finally, but at the same time, it's been a lot of fun. And I figured that I was going to make a quick tier list on the original bosses so that I can make another tier list on the DLC bosses after, just as to how hard they are. I'm going to change this, and this is just unfair. That's what the first one is going to be. This is challenging. We're going to do this one to be hard. This one right here is going to be mild. This one's going to be easy, and this one is cake. So essentially the way that this is going to work is based off of where you are in the game, based off of the gear that you might have in this by this particular point, and also just based off of the boss's attack patterns / how punishing it is, whether you can spawn people, whether you can't spawn people, whether you can, just everything built together as to my personal experience. To give you a little bit of background as to my playstyle in Elden Ring, I've played Dex builds, I've played Faith builds, and I have played Strength builds. I've intentionally ignored Mage builds because anybody that plays a Mage build is a bitch, and that's pretty much the end of that. The only summon that I really found myself using is Tishe, so prior to Tishe, I will not summon anything. I will just fight it on my own. But yeah, let's start with the Ancient Beast or something along those lines. I'm not going to know a lot of these names. I'm just going to kind of run it with... there's actually two of these Ancient Beasts. Yep, we're going to do both of them real quickly. Cake. First, the first of these Elder Beast, Ancient Beast, whatever it is, the Moose is what we going to call it. The Moose. The first Moose that you run into ain't nothing. It's harder to get to the boss because you have to run around and light fires than it is to fight the boss. I think that if you get hit on this boss, you're messing up greatly. Boss is very simple. You can go in there basically barehanded if you really want to. It's not that big of a deal. But at the same time, is cake. Obviously. I'm going to put the second one on easy. And the reason I'm not going to put it on the same level as Cake on Moose Stage 2 is the fact that he has a little bit of a different attack pattern / challenging respawn, I'm going to say. Because he has this weird thing where he can like re-summon himself with more health and then gain other abilities. And that can be a little bit irritating if you don't have the damage for it. But that's all the way down inside Nokram. Well, before you go into Nokram, it's the Sacred Grounds, right? Or right before the Sacred Grounds. And you, by that point, should be fairly strong. I mean, let me think this through. You should have if you're using a Somber weapon, Somber 7 at least by that point. So that should not be that difficult of a boss, which is why he's down there and easy. Astel, or as one of my friends call it, Estella, which I think is way better than Astel. So Estella, the pretty little natural born over here. You run into Estella in a very similar area, right? Kind of like a little bit before you're going to run into Moose level 2. And I never had trouble with this boss. This boss, I'm going to put him on mild just because of the fact that there are a couple abilities that if you're not comfortable with jumping the ability, jumping the attack, you might struggle mildly with this boyo. But at the same time, I think most people who play this game and are medium tier, I'm not saying good at the game, but just medium tier, I think most people, generally speaking, don't have problems with Estella. So I'm going to put him right here because I think that's probably the best. That's probably the best place I can put him. Is this Commander Niall or Commander Niall? I think that there's only one commander listed here, so this is compared to Commander Niall. Commander Niall, oh man, he is a challenging boss. You run into him way later in the game. By that point, you should have your weapon max leveled. You should be at decent level. He's optional, and you really are only trying to beat him if you're trying to get to the Haligtree. So honestly, he's a late game boss, and he's challenging. Don't get me wrong. Like, if you don't understand his attack patterns, he will hit you. He will pop you. I think the hardest part about him is the 2 knights that he summons in the very beginning of the game. Beginning of his fight. So I'm gonna just toss him up in challenging, because I think that in general, you're not gonna have a ton of trouble with him if you're good at the game, but he can present a decent amount of difficulty if you don't have somebody who understands his attacks. I think at the very least he's going to take 10 to 15 tries for a medium skilled to skilled player, right? For someone who's not good at the game, way longer than that. Like, you might have somebody who just can't actually get off the ground against him. I have a friend who tried to play the game. Guy was not able to beat this guy with like 40 to 50 tries. So that's why he's up and challenging. That's the Dragonkin, and I believe that's the Dragonkin that summons all the lightning down in the Angel River, because I don't think that the other one is even listed here. But Boyo's not that hard. He doesn't have enough health to really matter. I'm gonna put him on easy, honestly. Like, he is very easy at the game. He's easy to beat, and yeah, I don't think there's that much other things to say about it. I think he's just not that challenging of a boss, and he's kind of nice to just go and kill real fast when you're trying to figure out what to do. Let's do the Godfreys. Godfrey. It's not Godric. Godric is grafted. Godfreys, and Horalu, but this Godfrey is incredibly simple. His attacks are basic and straightforward. He doesn't have a phase 2. You run into him when you're pretty strong while in Lindell. He's I'm gonna put him under easy as well. I'm trying to mark most of the easy bosses first. Is really what I'm doing. Horalu is very similar to Godfrey, and you can make him even easier, right? Because his stage 1 is essentially just Godfrey with like an extra hammer slam, axe slam into the ground. He doesn't use a hammer; he uses an axe. And what makes him really easy is the fact that you can technically, if you play the game correctly, you can have 2 summons. You could have both Nefeli and also Samurai dude with the weird looking hat, but he's not actually a samurai. Spoilers, he's someone else by that point. But he's also very easy, not a hard boss. You could basically rip through him without any difficulty. Yeah, let's add silver. You can obviously cheese the silver tier by taking off all your armor. So he's cake. Honestly, he's probably number 1 cake. I'm gonna do it where, well, I guess usually it's this side goes down. He's the easiest boss in the game, hands down. You should never lose against him. If you're losing against him, it's just because you went into that fight with all your armor on, and suddenly you're just fighting yourself, and you're just not as good as yourself. Who else is just like extravagantly easy? I mean, I'll put him probably in just easy. That's the knight down in the Weeping Peninsula, the dragon, not dragon knight, lion knight or whatever he's called. Very simple boss to beat very early on. You can just get like a level 4 club and go down there and bop him on the head 9 times in a row, and he's just gonna get blasted. Like, you can ignore that guy almost entirely. Who is that? I don't know who that is. I feel like I should. Oh, is that the lady Loretta? Is that Loretta? That's probably Loretta. Yeah, that's Loretta. Okay, there's 2 Lorettas. Loretta 1 is definitely mild. Her skill set's not that hard. She doesn't have a ton of health. You run into her decently early in the game. You're in Lernia, and if you're trying to do the Renala quest line, you're probably going to just kind of beeline over there and just kind of get started on that, so you can have access to Tisha and other things along those lines. But her phase 2 is all the way up in the Haligtree, and this B word is a problem. Like, most people reach this point. If you're me, if you're like me, I go to the Haligtree to level, right? So I'm going to the Haligtree when I'm like level 75 to 80. You know, I'm way under leveled to be in that area, and my whole goal is to reach the prayer room so I can just run through a bunch of enemies and get like 100k a minute. Basically, is like usually my goal of farming stuff. So I fight her way earlier than I should. I fight her almost right after I fight Commander Niall, and she's not as hard as Niall, but she's rough. Her whole skill set involves majorly spawning a ton of magic stuff and throwing it at you. If you aren't good at dodging by this point, if you're fairly new, I think for like a skilled player, first timing her. But I felt myself struggling a little bit, like level 75, level 80, struggling a little bit against her. It took me like 3 to 4 tries to beat her last time I went through the game. And I just went through the game to get to the DLC. So, yeah, I'm going to put her on hard. Magma Worm. It's an easy boss. That's when you're trying to get to the Altus Plateau. And, I mean, come on. It's a Magma Worm. Who has trouble with the Magma Worm? Fire Giant. I'm going to put him under mild as well. Guy is not tough. You just, like, whack at his injured leg. He goes down. If you could just pay attention to the fires that he spawns and just run away from them. It's a horse boss. Any bosses that you can ride your horse on, really freaking easy. Let's be that honest. Melania. Let's just put her up there. Just enough said. Right? Like, nobody's able to just say that Melania is easy. She is the hardest character, the hardest boss in the game, minus the DLC. I would say that right now I would rather face her than Mesmer. But that's just because Mesmer felt so unfair to me. I could not get his attack patterns down. Radon. If you don't summon anyone with Radon, challenging for sure. Guy's skill set is rough, but you're literally summoning like 8 guys. In fact, he's in cake because you can actually, if you get lucky enough, spawn a bunch of your boyos, run away, and they'll kill him for you. You don't have to do that fight. That fight is free. Like, beyond free. In fact, what you can do with the beginning of the Radon fight is you can ride your horse backwards, and he won't even shoot arrows at you. You're just completely free of the entire fight. So, that guy is cake. Easily cake. He's obviously not easier than this guy because, like, you still have to dodge some stuff, but he's still cake. Let's be dead honest. Red Wolf. This guy's so squishy, but you run into him as you're going into Liurnia, and you have not fought that many, like, really difficult enemies, and he has so few areas that you can attack without getting attacked. You don't have armor against this guy. Like, he really does rip you up if you are not expecting it. I have died, this last playthrough, I died twice against him, and that's, you know, I have over 300 hours in this game. I should not be dying against this wolf guy. So I'm going to put him under mild, but I'm probably going to put him in the top of mild because he can give you some trouble. Briar Thorn, I'm going to put him on the back of hard. This guy you run into inside the, like, on the way to Volcano Manor. So he's not that far into the game that you can, it's like a mid-game boss. But he's really tough to just kind of dodge because, like, if you try to make some space to heal, he'll just, and you're just like, okay, that was funny. Not really. If you just dodge him consistently and never really have to try to go and heal, easy boss. But most people are going to get hit here or there. No one's really perfect. There are some perfect people, let's be honest, in this game. But no one's like that perfect. So I'm going to put him right here under hard. You'll beat him, but it might take you a couple dozen tries if you're not really if you're not like high skilled. If you're just medium skilled, he's like a dozen tries. So not that big of a deal. But Margot, who can't beat Margot, right? Like, you can spawn into the game as Samurai and go straight to Margot, don't level up whatsoever, and beat him first try. One of the freest bosses in the game. Put these foolish ambitions to rest. Super easy. Who the freak is that? Oh, that's the Valiant Gargoyles. I was super confused as to who they were. Such a small screen. Valiant Gargoyles are kind of tough for where they are. I ended up getting all the way to Horaloo. I didn't beat the Elden boss, Elden boy over here, Elden Beast. And I went to the DLC instead, and then I got stuck on Mesmer in the DLC, came back just to kind of kill some bosses, get some runes, and I one-tapped the Valiant Gargoyle. Super simple fight. But that doesn't make them easy, because when you usually fight against them, they're pretty tough. I'm actually going to put them above these two, just because of where you run into them in the game generally, because you're trying to get to Fia, and they can be kind of a hurdle to get to Fia. Like definitely the hardest boss of that point in the game. Like, they're not easy to just carve through. Is this Placidus X, or is this Lorenus X, or whatever the crap is that name ones? One of these is the Farum Azula ones, and one of these is the Fia's Deathbed one. I think this is the Fia's Deathbed one. Fia's Deathbed is tough, because, well, both of them are tough, but Fia's Deathbed is tough because of where you're fighting them. I'm going to put him on the bottom of challenging. He can take a couple tries inside the Nightmare Realm trying to fight him. It takes a lot to get to him, I want to be honest. Like, by that point, you are decently leveled. You're probably like level 80, 85. But he still is just kind of rough. Like, the lightning's tough. I don't like to fight those kind of dragons. It's really hard to lock in on them. They don't have good, like, locking mechanisms. So you have to fight most of the fight without locking. And that's really tough just to kind of navigate mechanically. So, yeah, I'm going to put him under bottom of challenging. Not that tough of a boss, but he can give you some trouble if you ain't paying attention. On the other hand, Lucidus X, or whatever the flap his name is, Lightning Farum Azula. The Farum Azula dragon. There's like 9 Farum Azula dragons. The Farum Azula secret boss. Boyo's up there as well. He's definitely harder than this, but this is like a late game boss, right? You're fighting this guy near the end of the game. So I'm going to put him right here in the middle of challenging. I'm going to put him before Niall, because I think Niall can probably give people more trouble than him, just because of where you run into them in the game. But at the same time, because you're going to come back for him. You're not going to just do him the first time through. And so, like, you're going to basically come back to him after you probably finish the game. That's what most people do. So I'm going to put him right here. Not that big of a deal. He's tough. He has some really cool moments, like his smoky, and you're like, ha! Yeah, but other than, just the general thing, he's just tail bop. You just go and whack his tail a bunch and he dies. Renala. I want to put her under Cake, but I'll be honest with you, there are people that struggle with her, so I'll put her in like the middle of easy. She's pretty early on, so you're pretty low level when you fight her. I think the Carrion Knight that you have to fight before you get to her is harder than her, but I'm not putting, obviously, invaders into this tier list, so she's under easy, not that difficult. Elden Beast, the Elden Boy. Ain't hard. Very easy boss. Like, definitely this guy is harder than him. Like the what the fuck is that guy's name? Renata? Dude, my bad. But Golden Boy. We're gonna call him Golden Boy. Golden Boy and Elden Boy. Golden Boy is definitely harder. He's late game. You're fighting him near the end of the game. You just beat Horaloo. You've just run through the, Gideon. You've just done all that kind of stuff. By this point, you have an end-game build. You're pretty strong. You're level 100 and something. You've beaten every other boss in the game, basically. You run into these guys. Neither of them are hard. Phase 1's easily harder than Phase 2. If you can dodge with Phase 2, he's simple. Just get behind him and bash his back a couple dozen times. Not that big of a deal. So I'm going to put... I'm going to put him on mild and him in hard. He's definitely easier than these three, especially for where you fight him in the game. The nobles. I get it. This is the duo, and this is the guy inside Volcano Manor. The Volcano Manor guy's really easy. Like, honestly, I don't think the Godskin nobles by themselves are very hard. I think that they can be a little bit challenging if you're not used to their attack patterns or how to dodge them, but they're staggerable and they also bleed so easily. There's also like the whole sleeping mechanic you can do on them that I've never done before, but I've heard makes them a lot easier. So I'm gonna put Boyo. I don't feel good about that. I'm gonna put him on top of easy. Godskin duo. I got some story for this. First time I played the game was like 4 years ago, and I got stuck at the Fair Missoula Godskin Duo fight. I could not get past that fight. I ended up quitting, and I was like a level 130, and I just quit that game and gave up on it. And I came back to it, never had a problem with him again. Like this most recent run through that I just did, where I ran through the whole game so I could get the DLC. I first timed it. It was not hard. Like I was able to do the jumping from the balcony one because I didn't die against him. So I just jumped from the balcony, killed them both. Wasn't that big of a deal. So, but because people think that they're so hard, I am going to put them on the back of hard. But I don't think that they're hard bosses. I think that people just don't understand the boss. Now, Mog, on the other hand, and there's obviously two Mogs. Mog Lord of Blood is easily challenging. That boy is freaking tough. You can't fight him without getting a very specific flask. So like he has setup that you have to do to beat him, and you got to beat him to get to the DLC. So rough boy. On the other hand, the original Mog is not that tough. I'm going to do top of mild because he's definitely harder than the wolf, but he's not that hard of a fight. Like he's getting to him is way harder than fighting him because you have to go through like the labyrinth that is the subterranean shaming grounds. But he's not that tough. Like honestly, you shouldn't have that much trouble against him. It's just slap on a fire resistant thing. Don't use bleed weapons. My bad. He's very resistant to fire, but he's not resistant to bleed at all. Hope that you have enough damage. He can stagger pretty easily. This boy, not going to talk about him. I'm gonna talk about this guy in the DLC more because I am going to count him as a DLC boss because you have to fight him to get to the DLC. He's going to be listed. But who the flop? Oh, is that Grafted? Is that Godric? Kirk. You could summon Nefeli. Nefeli's broken. She's OP. Who the flock is that? I don't know who that is. Is that Morgoth Stage 2? It's such a small thing. I think it's Morgoth Stage 2. He's either top of mild or bottom of hard for where you run into him. I'll probably put him as top of mild. Morgoth Stage 2. Big Daddy Morgoth. Just ain't that big of a deal. Just dodge. Just dodge forehead. He's not even hard to dodge. He's very telegraphed. If you're spamming dodge roll, you're going to die to him a bunch. If you just pay attention to his attacks, he's not that fast of an attacker. Don't go for risky attacks. Free boss. Not that big of a deal. Rykard. Free. He's cake. Any boss that has a weapon that spawns into the area that you can upgrade and then fight, you grab that dragon, the serpent slaying spear thing, and level it up to Sombra level 7 if you're really that desperate. You can one cycle him, like just blast the crap out of him. Equip a shield, grab the thing, poke him over and over and over and over again. Free bite. Like, family! Simple. This might be the most decisive. I feel like a lot of this list is very divisive. But at the same time, this might be the most divisive thing. Malekith, I don't think is that hard. I think the Beast Clergyman is the harder part. The second stage is not difficult, especially if you've... Oh, I feel like I'm like out of focus suddenly. Especially if you've like been fine to parry his, golden whoop-sing free boss. So easy of a boss. The Beast Clergyman can kind of be tough because of his like double swipe if you're not good at timing getting into it. Also, his Stone Fling is just rough. I'd say the only reason his second phase is hard is if you have a ton of trouble in your first phase. But you shouldn't get hit in the second phase. The whole point is just hug him. Like, get right on top of him and hug him, and he's just not going to be able to hit you. I'm going to put him under mild. Oh, people hate him. I'll put him under hard. I don't think he's tough. I think he's really easy. I'm going to have trouble with Melania. Honestly, I have some trouble with Niall. Niall can be kind of difficult. Both of these Lightning Dragon boys can be tough. Mog Lord of Blood is really unfun to play. All these up here are just not very fun to fight. But then you get down to the hard section, and all of these guys, for where you run into them, they're hard. However, if you fight them later on, why am I so blurry? I swear right now. But once again, if you fight them later, easy. Not even a challenge. So yeah, this is my listings. I'm gonna do a DLC listings after I finish it. I'm like, once again, 60% of the way through. I'm trying to I'm trying to find not Rilana. I'm trying to find Rilana right now, and I'm pretty excited about that one. A great game. Elden Ring's awesome. If you have a list different than this and you think that this list is psychotic, please tell me. I would love to know what bosses you guys think are just disgustingly hard that I have listed as cake. Like, if you think any of these 5, please list it in the comments that you struggle with those bosses. I will get into call with you and tell you how to beat these boys. I will create a video essay on how these guys are the easiest mofos you're ever gonna freaking run into. But with that being said, have a good one, y'all. And like and subscribe. Be ready for the next tier list, because it's coming.